Hello students, let today revise about various agents of pollination. There are two types of agents who does pollination. One is abiotic, that is non-living, and another is biotic agent, living. Abiotic agent, when pollination is done by air, it is called as anemophily, and the flower is called as anemophilous flower. When pollination is done by water, it is called as hydrophily, and the flower is called as hydrophilous flower. Biotic agent, living. When pollination is done by insect, it is called as entomophily, and the flower is called as entomophilous flower. When pollination is done by birds, it is called as ornithophily, and the flower is called as ornithophilous flower. When pollination is done by bats, called as chiropterophily, and the flower is called as chiropterophilous flower. Let's start with anemophily. Anemophily is a transfer of pollen grain through wind, air. Anemophily is considered as the most primitive type of pollination, and mostly the plant produces unisexual flower. Adaptations in anemophilous plant. Flowers are small, inconspicuous, without bright color, nectar and fragrance. Petals are green or highly reduced. When flowers are unisexual, the male flowers are more numerous in number than female, and male flowers are situated at a higher level. Stamens are with long filament, versatile and exposed anther. Pollen grains are produced in extremely large numbers to compensate their wastage. These are small, smooth-walled, pale yellow in color and light in weight. Long style bears large feathery or hairy stigma to trap pollen grains. Example: grasses, maize, jawar, sugarcane. Hydrophily, transfer of pollen grains through the agency of water. The water pollinated plants are hydrophilous. Floral adaptations in hydrophilous plant. Flowers are mostly unisexual, small and inconspicuous. They are without fragrance, bright color and nectar. Pollen grain and other floral parts are unweightable, that is, coated with mucilage. The specific gravity of pollen grain is controlled by the formation of one or more starch grain in the pollen grains. Stigma is long and sticky. Hydrophily is of two types: hypohydrophily and epihydrophily. Hypohydrophily, pollination with the help of water takes place below the water surface in the hydrophytes, bearing submerged female flowers. Such plants produce needle-like pollen grains in which exine is absent. They bear same specific gravity as that of water. Therefore, they float below the water surface. Such pollen grains, when comes in contact with stigma, they coiled around it and germinate. Example: Zoostera and Ceratophyllum. Epihydrophily, when pollination occurs on the surface of water, it is epihydrophily. It is the most common type of hydrophily. Example: Vallisneria. Vallisneria is a dioecious plant, that is, male and female flowers are submerged and produced on separate plant. At the time of maturity, the male flowers are detached from the male inflorescence and begin to float on water surface. The female flowers has a coiled long pedicel which undergoes uncoiling at the time of maturity. They now reach the water surface. The male flowers surround the female flower and undergo anthesis, that is, opening of flower bud after formation of pollen grain at maturity, due to which pollen grains are deposited on the stigma of female flower and cross pollination is achieved. Biotic factors. First is entomophily. Pollination done through the agency of insect is entomophily. Common insect which act as carrier in entomophily are moth, butterflies, beetle, flies, bees. Bees are the most common agent, and nearly 75 to 80% of total insect pollination is achieved with the help of bees. Adaptations. Entomophilous flower are large and attractive. When small, flowers are produced in compact group of inflorescence. Example, sunflower. Flower have attractive bright color, pleasant fragrance and nectar. In some plants, additional modifications are made for attraction of insect. Example, corona in fashion flower, petaloid bright in bougainvillea. The pollen grains have spiny or rough exine. Stigma is sticky. Example, jasmine, rose, cestrum, salvia, bougainvillea. A few plants develop special mechanism to favor this process. Example, salvia has developed lever mechanism in its flower. In salvia, flower is bisexual and protandrous. Protandrous means androecium matures before gynoecium. The two stamens of flower have long bifurcated connective. Upper branch of connective bears fertile anther lobe, while the lower has sterile anther lobe. An insect, when enters in the flower, it pushes the lower sterile lobe. As a result, the upper fertile anther lobe bends down. It comes in contact with backside of insect body and pollen grains are dusted there. The same insect, when visit another flower with matured gynoecium, the pollen grains are picked up by the receptive stigma. Such mechanism is called lever mechanism. Ornithophily, when the pollination takes place through the birds. Adaptations. Ornithophilous plants shows large flowers with thick and fleshy floral parts. Corolla is tubular or funnel shape. Flowers with bright colored corolla like orange, red, yellow, blue, which helps in attracting the birds. Flower lacks fragrance because birds have poor sense of smell. Flowers produce large amount of sugary nectar which is used as a drink by the birds. Pollen grains are sticky. Example, callistemon, that is bottle brush, bignonia, bootia and bombex, that is silk cotton. The common pollinating birds are sunbirds, hummingbirds, crow and bulbul. Chiropterophily. Pollination which takes place with the help of bats is chiropterophily. Adaptations. Flowers are large, stout enough so that bat can hold on to the flower. Chiropterophilous plants are nocturnal and open their flowers during night time. Flowers emit rotten fruit like fermenting fruity odor. Flowers produce copious nectar. Flowers have large numbers of stamen to produce a considerable large quantity of pollen grains. Example, Anthocephalus kadam, Kigelia pinnata, Adansonia and Bahonia.